Hey YouTube, Joeboy here. So, One Piece chapter 1040 is out. If you guys haven't checked out that chapter yet, I suggest that you do so because I will be spoiling you. Now that you have, let's begin. Oda is an incredible madman. I want to start the review with this because in no universe ever did I think that Kid and Law defeating Big Mom in Onigashima without Big Mom first defeating them or something weird happening, I never in my wildest dreams thought that that would be good. I hate saying that. You guys know I hate saying that. I hate basically being like, well, you know, if this happens, it's gonna be trash. I always leave open the possibility of, I don't think so, but it's possible that Oda can surprise me. Now, I don't always believe it when I say it because, I mean, I didn't know any conceivable universe in which that would be good. But here we are. Oda freaking delivered. You know, it reminds me of something that Oda was quoted as saying when he was on a panel judging young mangakas, basically. He was reviewing other people's stories. And basically, what he said is be creative. That's the single thing which matters most to him. And he believes should matter to those people. If he sees things that are just like other things that are popular or other things that he's read, it is immediately downgraded in his mind. And you know, honestly, I really resonate with this philosophy. I think that most people start to acquire this sort of bias. The more stories that they read, the older that they get. You want something new. Some people want the same thing repeated in different ways, but eventually for everyone, or most everyone, it gets tired. You want to see something new, and I think that it is especially true for somebody like Oda, who is a professional storyteller. And is not only is he creating his own story, but he has to keep up to date with pop culture and references, and so he consumes a lot of media, and so he wants to see something different, surprising. Some people are just built different. That's just the easiest way to explain it. And Oda is one of those people, in my opinion, where I almost feel as if whenever somebody doubts him, whenever somebody questions what he can or can't do, it motivates him and it fuels him. Oh, you think that I can't do this? Well, just sit back and watch. Or maybe this is just something internal with himself. Either way, you get the same result. It is truly inspiring to me. But anyway, I think that the main reason why the conclusion of this fight worked for me is because Big Mom isn't defeated. So had she actually been KO'd or near death, that sort of thing, I'm not sure how that would have sat with me. Instead, Law and Kid took care of the problem of Big Mom by removing her from Onigashima. And in the process, doing some insanely cool stuff in order to make that happen. Everything about the whole scenario, all of the story beats and the emotional beats of the chapter leading to Big Mom going through the hole was just perfect. And the artwork, oh my god, was so good. But anyway, we start off at the end of the last chapter with Kid firing his weapon at Big Mom. Law had already created the hull, and so the idea was, and this is something that I didn't really pick up on immediately, this didn't occur to me at the time, was that Law's plan was for Kid to shoot the gun on Big Mom and send her through the hole and out of Onigashima. That's like insanely obvious now that we look back on it, because the hole that Law created in the last chapter literally went all the way through the island and into the ground. But here we are. In the very first panel of this chapter, we can see a sideways view of the hole going through Onigashima with the X of the current location, and especially with the end of this chapter with some of the bombs exploding, and we know that some of the bombs still remain in Onigashima. I just can't shake the thought that if all the bombs at the bottom of Onigashima went off, the island would fly to the moon. Do you guys see that? It would become like a rocket. You heard it here first. The bomb goes off, Onigashima flies into space, becomes a spaceship. Now you can't unsee it. Space Piece is real. Jokes aside, let's stay focused. Law and Kid trying to get Big Mom off the island. But of course, it's not that easy. I think the portrayal of Big Mom in this chapter was the kind of portrayal that we needed from her. I think I said this in the last review, but you know, you get those vibes of why Big Mom is a Yonko, how much of a monster she is. Kid and Law's attack, yeah, they got her out of Onigashima, so they technically win the fight, but Big Mom is a freak. Kid's best attack is hardly phasing her. But the reality is that Big Mom is actually in danger of going through the hole, and so she has a moment where she tries to flex. Oh, you can't actually defeat me. I'm gonna turn on my devil fruit abilities because you're gonna be scared now. And that was, I don't know, something about that was just incredibly awesome. And then you see everyone around here that's watching the event start to lose their lifespan because they're afraid of Big Mom, but Kid and Law aren't. So at the same time, you get this awesome moment for Big Mom. It's equally awesome for Kid and Law. It's just winning all around. And I guess the reason why Law and Kid aren't scared, or particularly Law isn't scared, is because he has a plan. You know, this is another thing which has been set up earlier in Onigashima and the battle on the roof. When Big Mom fell off the island beforehand, she was saved by Zeus. None of these thoughts actually occurred to me during the chapter. I want to make that clear. It's more so like after having read it, you can see the layers of complexity of what was taking place. Mainly because it didn't ever occur to me that Big Mom would actually fall through the hole. But now we start the chapter with that being the premise. Well, Big Mom's not going to fall through the hole because one of her homies is probably going to catch her. That's the most realistic thing to occur. But Law knows this, has taken it into account, and has a move ready that he thinks will prevent Big Mom from being able to do that. And it's not only satisfying because of the 3D chess that's being played with the characters here in the fight and the circumstances, it's also satisfying because of the flavor that Oda adds to it with Corazon. You know, Law basically being able to remove sound isn't a thing that would probably work without Law's history with Corazon and Corazon's powers. Just to remove yourself from the actual story and how you felt about the chapter for a moment, Law demonstrates a super niche ability to essentially stop Big Mom from defending herself and saving herself, right? In a lot of different ways, it doesn't work because it'll come off as convenient. But Oda manages to wriggle through and around these barriers because of Law's history with Corazon. That is the reason it works. It's not quite foreshadowing, but it serves the same purpose. Very similar to, for instance, Luffy Gear 2nd when he encountered Cypherpole and they had techniques that made them faster. So for Luffy to take inspiration from those and develop his own, it works. But full disclosure here, a lot of what's going on is Oda cheating as a storyteller because Law's abilities haven't been demonstrated before. Therefore, especially with how his powers are designed, Oda can make Law do essentially anything. Like, let's just be honest here for a moment. Law's abilities, room naturally, plus whatever his awakening specifically does, I still don't know, is absurdly broken, which, you know, the price on his devil fruit, I understand it now. I mean, I understood it before, but I really understand it now. It's the equivalent of any fantasy story that you would read where someone would criticize because a wizard did it. What happened? Why did it happen? Don't know. It's magic. A wizard did it. A lot of that is definitely in play with the scenario of this chapter. Like, as an example here, just to talk about, you know, I want to talk more about this and why it's so special to me. You know, think about Lord of the Rings. I know that some of you may not have seen that or read that, but most of you have. There's a scene with Gandalf, the wizard, in the mountain where they encounter this demon of fire and shadow called the Balrog. Basically, when the Balrog appears, you as the audience think there is no way it is humanly possible for any of the characters in the story, the allies, the heroes, to be able to defeat this demon because it is literally like a creature out of mythology. It is so absurdly broken and powerful, there's just, you lose. So the only strategy is to run away, which is what happens initially. But as it turns out, the Balrog wasn't invincible, and the reason it wasn't invincible is because you had a wizard. And the wizard could do anything. So you encounter an unsolvable problem and you solve it with a wizard. This is something that, Lord of the Rings is like the genesis of fantasy pretty much. And from this, you see in countless other stories after this, a situation like this is a trope. You put the characters in a situation that they can't win and you find some sort of solution because of a wizard. And the wizard has powers that the audience don't know. So I think that you could probably see here, this scenario is in play with what happened in this chapter of One Piece because Big Mom is the Balrog and Law is Gandalf the Wizard. No offense, Kid fans, but Law definitely pulled more weight here. Kid was the muscle and Law was everything that made it work. Now, if you tried to do a situation that is almost exactly like the Balrog and Gandalf from Lord of the Rings today, you would be absolutely eviscerated by critics. Because, this is the trope of the genre. Many people did things like this after Lord of the Rings did it, and it progressively got less and less satisfying, unless the thing is catered towards children, and in children's case, it often doesn't matter. But One Piece is written for two audiences simultaneously. A child can read it and enjoy it, as well as an adult. By the way, you try that, it is insanely difficult and something not a lot of people talk about. As I am currently writing my story, I intended for it to do that same thing, and maybe in some ways it would work, but at the end of the day, as I'm writing it, it's like, no, this is definitely for adults, definitely. Because it's about the themes that you talk about and the way that you talk about them. And, yeah. But so anyway, adults who have read a plethora of stories encounters a Gandalf Balrog situation and they can recognize it like that immediately, it's probably not a good moment for them and leads to criticism. And so what happens with the evolution of this over time, you still have situations like it, but you have to complicate it. You have to add things to it. There's layers, it becomes more and more difficult to write a scene like this in a way that people actually enjoy. I.e., what I'm saying is you have to be creative. But the point is that what Law accomplished with his awakening is literally a wizard did it, and there was not any real great setup for it. Just like in Lord of the Rings. And Oda just freaking nailed it. You're not sitting here thinking about how contrived Law's powers are in order to defeat Big Mom, because the whole thing was so satisfying. Like, guys, to continue on my little nerd train here, I play a lot of Magic the Gathering, and this felt a lot like that. One of the most satisfying things about Magic or card games that are similar to that is you're going for the kill. You and your opponent have cards in hands and things to do. You're like, I'm about to win. And so your opponent has a response, and you have a response to their response. They have a response to your response, and you finally have the last response in the chain. And you win, and it feels spectacular. That is the situation that Oda has recreated. And just another reason why it works. And man, there's symbolism too. Like, you sent Big Mom straight to hell. I mean, literally, she fell through a hole to the center of the planet, I guess. Or thought from like the opposite perspective, Onigashima being hell, Law and Kid have become kings of hell and dethroned the previous ruler. But anyway, let's move on. So, the big discussion after this chapter is, what about Big Mom? What happens now? It's very clear from the things that she said that she is not defeated. Did the bomb inside the hole kill her? No. How deep is the hole? That's a question that I want to know. Somebody brought up the hole in his lobby and some other theories that have been made about that and similarities here. Like, that in and of itself is a thought worthy of excitement. Did the previous user of Law's Awakened Double recreate the hole in his lobby? I mean, it doesn't seem too outrageous, honestly. But we know that Big Mom isn't done. And so the question now is, when will she reappear? Because she will. A lot of people, I think, have argued for a long time that the Big Mom pirates are just going to run away from Onigashima and Wano. They're going to leave. So Big Mom's going to get out of the hole, see that the Straw Hats have beaten Kaido, and then just throw up the peace signs and leave with her crew. I still really hope that that doesn't happen, but as soon as I say that, right, Oda's going to be like, so you don't think that it would work, huh? But like what accompanies this thought typically is that a lot of people see Big Mom going to Elbaf because of her history with giants, so that's a possibility still, even if I don't like it. Just a fun fact for you, in the most recent Pirate Warriors game, which was set in Wano, the Straw Hats are fighting Kaido, and they end up defeating Kaido, which is not a thing that has happened in the manga yet. So there's things from there that happened that obviously couldn't have happened yet in the manga, and so people wonder if it's foreshadowing or not. So 1, Blackbeard shows up. 2, Big Mom actually runs away. So maybe Oda slipped the game some notes, or they just did what was easiest. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. But in this case, I think that I'm just going to stick with my guns. I've argued over the past month, or if not longer, since the fights against King and Queen, that a lot of the Strat's enemies are going to get back up. That's what I've been saying nonstop every single week, pretty much. Because it's not just that Sanji defeated Queen, it's not just that Zoro defeated King. They defeated them in particular ways. Mainly, they kicked them off the island. So it leaves open the possibility that they return. It almost suggests by nature that they wouldn't have defeated them if they hadn't knocked them off the island. Although there's still some symbolic importance to the idea of kicking all these people out of Onigashima, which is also considered hell. We've already talked about that. But if the Straw Hats' enemies that they have already defeated have the time to get back up and rejoin the battle, then yikes. Particularly as, I saw a little clip of Zoro in this chapter, and my guy looks dead. He just straight up looks dead. Grim Reaper finally got him. And particularly with Big Mom, I think that it brings the whole speculation together, really. Because Big Mom straight up says, like, I'm not done. So, she'll have the opportunity to rejoin the battle if she wants to. Also, her children have yet to do anything in the battle itself aside from Perospero. So for them to literally show up after Big Mom's been knocked off the island, get Big Mom, and then just immediately run away is, again, another thing that I think would work. It would be very dissatisfying because people like myself are excited to see what the Big Mom pirates are going to do, so, there's got to be something cool there. But in the middle of all this action with Big Mom as she's falling, she starts thinking to herself about Roger and the One Piece, and that was also a moment that just kicked some freaking butt. You guys know that I love Big Mom. I think that I can say Big Mom is my favorite villain in all of One Piece because she is so interesting to me. And so this little segment here where she's thinking to herself really characterizes her, just as I always imagined she was. Big Mom lives in the center of her own universe where everything is about Big Mom, and in this respect she is a lot like a child. Big Mom fails to see through other people's eyes and experiences. Big Mom's truth is the truth. And so Big Mom believes that she's trying to save the world. That is what she honestly believes in her own demented childish way. Like, I need to become the ruler of the Grand Line, and everyone needs to respect me and listen to me because I know what's best. Mama knows what's best. I'm going to make everyone get along. I'm going to create a paradise for everyone. And to Big Mom, anybody who stands in her way ever is a bad person. And I think that you see this reflected in her thought bubbles, where Big Mom will literally blame everyone else but herself for all of the things that happen to her or that impede her. This particular personality trait is really interesting to me because, people fall on either side of this, where it's either no accountability, it's everyone else's fault, or sometimes, and this could possibly be equally as bad, it's always your fault and nobody else's. Obviously, this has already been established for Big Mom, but to read the dialogue, sort of Big Mom's take about Roger was fascinating. Roger came into Big Mom's territory, stole her road poneglyph, and became the king of the pirates. And who's at fault? Who's the bad guy? Roger. Big Mom doesn't think to herself, I really messed up because I allowed Roger to do this. No, it's Roger's a bad person for doing it. Roger then becomes the most notorious pirate, starts the great age of piracy, and Big Mom is fighting against people that were inspired by this message. And Big Mom doesn't blame herself for all of the things that we could consider failings. The reason why she is now falling off of Onigashima and she has lost this battle. It's that damn Roger's fault again. Also, I kind of chuckled to myself at this line. The least you could have done was tell us about the One Piece before you croaked. It is a real, right? And immediately I think about Whitebeard and Roger's conversation before he died with Whitebeard. And sorry, Big Mom, you were left out of this. I think it's pretty clear from this that Roger respected Whitebeard way more than he respected Big Mom. Which is interesting because Whitebeard didn't want to know, but Big Mom did. Big Mom is also the character that wants to have friends and everyone get along with each other. And Roger wasn't her friend, but I think Whitebeard could have considered, his relationship was different. I think it really emphasizes what Big Mom is. Big Mom, despite her, she's a monster, freakishly strong, incredibly powerful, is a walking failure, mainly because she cannot get what she wants. And every step along the way, she blames somebody else. When you think about it like this, it's really beautiful. Also, I want to bring this up as well because I just made the video talking about Ghost Piece, but we have another potential evidence of Ghost Piece or something related to it in this chapter as well. Because as Big Mom is falling off the island, she says she's talking to Roger inside of her mind. Are you listening, Roger? Which the whole idea of the Fire Festival is to communicate with the dead, so that was really fitting within that theme. Obviously, Roger didn't talk back, but there's a few other things that I want to discuss. First of which, and I'm really not sure about this, so I'm asking you as much as saying anything here, but the scene with Kazinbo in this chapter was very weird to me, because I didn't understand it. Big Mom is obviously crashing through the hole. She appears to make contact with Kazinbo, and then it does the whole, Orochi-sama thing. But what is going on? Like, first off, what is this creature? What is Chondro's soul inside of it? Is that what's going on? I don't know. But number two is Kazinbo, at the end, we see Yamato, and there doesn't appear to be any threat within the basement. So I presume that Big Mom falling through the hole defeated Kazinbo. In what way? I'm not really sure. Did Big Mom just, by crashing into it, solo it? Was Big Mom still using her soul focus ability, and that's why a little filament of the ghost almost separates? Is Big Mom sucking Kazinbo into herself? Or did it just get knocked off the island? Where, it could go through the island down, but may not be able to go back up, so it's falling with Big Mom. Like I said, guys, I don't really know which one of these is the truth or something else, but as I read the chapter, I wasn't sure. I think that it's fair to speculate that the next chapter may begin with an update about Kazinbo, because, unless I'm missing something obvious, because it wasn't unclear. But of course, we still haven't talked about the very end of the chapter. I have a new friend. Look, nothing about the end of this is surprising, but it is satisfying. I feel like we are maybe 1 or 2 steps ahead of the tease at the end of this chapter, where Zunisha is Joy Boy's companion who committed a crime from the Void Century, and we're off already speculating like, oh, Zunisha is an ancient weapon. You know what I mean? The speculation of Zunisha being related to an ancient weapon by nature probably makes Zunisha a companion of Joy Boy, because we know that the ancient weapons, the knowledge about them, were contained on the poneglyphs created by the Kozukis, who also mentioned Joy Boy as kind of their leader, so all of this sort of fits in line. Mainly what's exciting about this is confirmation of essentially what we already knew, and the promise of finding out the details that we definitely don't. But basically the thing that I think that this chapter makes you think about the most is, first off, what is Zunisha going to do? After the last chapter, Momonosuke heard a voice. For some reason in Zunisha, which was in like the chapter beforehand, didn't occur to me. Don't know how that happened, but it's very obvious, right, that Momonosuke was hearing Zunisha, just teased recently. And so you presume Zunisha is getting closer, going to do something. What will that be? My speculation from the chapter that Zunisha was teased is that maybe she puts the fire out on Onigashima. That seems like something that she could do and could be helpful. That's the only thing which intuitively makes sense to me at the moment, but as always, as this chapter really demonstrates, right, it can get really creative, so I'm excited to see that. But the other thing that this makes you think about is Zunisha's crime that she committed in the distant past. We learned this in Zou. Now that it is confirmed that she is Joy Boy's companion, and we all presume, this may not be true, but we all presume that Joy Boy was the hero character from the Void Century, was the good guy, the Luffy of the Void Century, then, why would one of his companions commit a crime? Under what circumstances did that happen, and what exactly did she do? The running headcanon that I've had, again related to her being related to an ancient weapon, is that she killed innocent people, that she destroyed an island. If it's a crime, right, it was probably intentional more so than not. But we learn about ancient weapon, for instance, Pluton, where the world government is afraid of the ancient weapons because of their power to destroy islands. And that's the whole reason why all the information about the ancient weapons is a closely guarded secret. The world government doesn't want this information out there. And really the only source which could provide somebody information about how to awaken them or use them is on indestructible poneglyphs. There's a reason for that. And so I've always thought that if the world government is afraid of ancient weapons, at some point in time they must have been used. As much as we dislike the world government celestial dragons, and as biased of a source as they are, and also, following Attack on Titan, the anime as well, currently, being reminded of that story, the twist in that series is kind of what I'm suggesting here to an extent, which is that there's some truth to the celestial dragon's bias, the reason why they're so adamant against the ancient kingdom and their weapons. To go along with this thought, my other headcanon for the ancient weapons is that they were never intended to be used as weapons. This is very obvious when you think about Shirahoshi. If Momonosuke has the power to command Zunisha, or is another ancient weapon as well, this would make further sense, but Shirahoshi should not be used as a weapon. I think that the ancient weapons, their actual intended use was for something else. Imagine like Luffy as the king of the pirates, right? Zunisha wouldn't be a weapon in his eyes, it's a ship or something like that. It's a cool thing, my companion. Or if they had further uses for them in their in-game strategy, there's theories like destroy the Red Line, right? Maybe Joy Boy hoped that Zunisha would destroy it with her trunk. Or, something related to this that's a little bit more substantiated is Shirahoshi's an ancient weapon that can control the Sea Kings, but likely they just wanted to use her powers to bring the fishmen up to the surface, use them to carry the Noah, a non-violent thing that an incredibly powerful power can do. These ancient weapons weren't intended to take lives, they were intended to save lives in whatever way, or bring freedom to the world. Essentially, the ancient weapons were powerful enough that the person who commanded them, or the person that was friends with them, or however this works, could use them in order to force their vision for the world upon everyone else. You could use their power to subjugate the world. But I don't think that that's a Luffy thing to do, and I project this on Joy Boy as well. This is something that is alluded to with the blueprints of Pluton in Water 7 with Frankie and Iceberg. The creators of the blueprints that Frankie possessed were afraid of the ancient weapons, of the power that they possessed. So they created a thing which would be able to equal it so that it didn't destroy the world. And this was prefaced with Frankie's backstory, where as a youth, he wanted to create a bunch of weapons. And the moral of the story was, well, you're creating a bunch of weapons, but what if they fell into the wrong hands? And in that flashback, they did. And Frankie's weapons, quote unquote, were used against him. I think that a lot of this has significance and relates thematically to events that occurred during the Void Century. Frankie didn't create those weapons to actually be used as weapons, he just thought that they were really cool. And everyone around him, Iceberg, was like, hey, creating these things is a bad idea. Maybe you won't use them to take lives, but they can be used. So it's been my headcanon, and of course the exact way that this happened will matter quite a lot, so it may be unsatisfying to talk about it in this way, but in some way or some fashion, Zunisha was controlled or hoodwinked by somebody who didn't have Joy Boy's ideals in mind. And this led to Zunisha committing a crime, which I think is destroying an island. But to take this a step further, I kind of think like a Roger Rocks situation. Rocks wanted to destroy God Valley. And the person that actually stopped him wasn't really the world government, although Garp was involved as well. It was Roger, another pirate, stopped Rocks from killing celestial dragons. Are celestial dragons innocent people? No, not really. But there's got to be a reason why Roger intervened and didn't think that it was right of Rocks to just kill all of the celestial dragons. And you also got to think that there wasn't just celestial dragons at God Valley. I mean, it's known that celestial dragons own slaves, so was Rocks going in there and potentially killing all the slaves too as a casualty? The greater good here being killing the celestial dragons, and everyone else is just a casualty out of necessity, right? We don't know what happened, but that seems realistic to me. You can also take yourself back to Marineford and Kobe's speech during it. Kobe himself, there were so many Marines in that battle. Are Marines innocents? Well, you can say no, but when you actually get to know them, you realize, yeah, they're very innocent of, they're just pawns. Speaking of Attack on Titan, this is another philosophy that series talks about, where, you start with certain allied characters and their fight against monsters, against villains, against devils, and then as you reach the end of the story, it kind of flips on its head, and then the enemies then become, without knowing what happened first, anybody could have been the main character of that series. It just depends on who you want to focus on and how you want to tell the story. No matter who wins, there's going to be blood on their hands. And the same thing applies to Marines, where they think that they're doing the right thing, that they have a job to do to protect the world from pirates, not from the Celestial Dragon. They're supposed to protect the Celestial Dragons. So One Piece told in a different way could have a Marine as the main character fighting against people like Luffy, bringers of chaos and disorder. And the reason why this works and makes sense, just like in Attack on Titan, is that, you know, your everyday people, they don't know the truth. They don't know what to believe. They believe what they've been taught from the people that they know, their friends, their own subjective and biased experiences. Why are things this way or that way? We'll find out at the end of the story. But until then, most characters are like Luffy, who are just doing what they want to do and fighting for the people that they love. But that next level of enlightenment really complicates everything, where it's so easy to demonize your enemies, people who stand in your way or do things against you. They must be bad people. But the next level of enlightenment is the realization that 99.9% of all people are just people, and given different circumstances, if they were raised with you, for instance, they would probably be your friend, or could be. And when you think about it like this is a philosophy and a theme that is integral to One Piece, because all of the Straw Hat's enemies, or many of them, end up becoming allies. And you see that within each of these factions, that, you know, it's very easy for most stories to just label as good or bad. There's good and bad within all of them. There's good Celestial Dragons, there's bad Celestial Dragons, there's good Marines, there's bad Marines, there's good pirates, there's bad pirates, there's good kings, there's bad kings, right? And it's the generalizations that just don't hold water. So no matter which group wins, if they destroy another group, innocents will be killed. And I kind of wonder if Oda doesn't try and choose a way, a non-violent way, basically. Or a less violent way. Obviously, punches will be thrown. Is there a way to save the world without killing everybody? So apply this to Zunisha. Sometime during the Void Century, Zunisha was controlled or hoodwinked in order to destroy an island of potentially villains, but in the process killed actual innocent people. Or it wasn't cool to do what she did in any respect. And so Joy Boy, who wanted to find a better way, punished Zunisha for this. But anyway, that's my filler headcanon for now. This is one of those things where I really feel like what we're actually going to get is going to be very nuanced and not so broad-brushed. But, you know, I'm excited to know. And, we're very clearly close. There was another mention in this chapter of, you know, what secrets does one hold regarding the poneglyphs, regarding the One Piece. So we're there. It's, you know, I feel it. But yeah, this was just an incredible chapter of One Piece. As always, I'm curious as to what you guys think, whether you know something from the chapter that I might have missed. Just share your thoughts. Like the video if you liked the video, dislike the video if you disliked the video, subscribe if you want to be notified for my future content, and as always, have a wonderful day.